Gilgamesh was the son of the cow goddess Nisuna, the great queen and priestess of Shamash, the sun god, and his father, Lila, a famous priest of Kalama. Gilgamesh was the ruler of a Sumerian city called Uruk. This city would have been fortified into one of the most powerful cities of its time. It is believed that Gilgamesh was the fifth king of the city. Gilgamesh is of divine origin because he possesses 2 parts god and 1 part human, which gives him several divine characteristics, such as strength and especially size. Gilgamesh is a man with a truly impressive physique who exceeds the average height of the Iraqi people. Gilgamesh is shown to be one of the most powerful men on earth, and his kingdom is filled with whims and mayhem that no one on earth can cope with or even reject. Decree of the king, son of the gods. Gilgamesh was shown to all the people as vile and corrupt, as his decisions overrode the people of Uruk, abusing his power drastically and causing great discontent throughout the kingdom. Gilgamesh was so powerful and scary that even in some of the laws he established, he said that every woman in Europe had to sleep with the king before marrying her husband. For many, this causes great resentment toward women's privacy and dignity, and therefore toward their future husbands. However, nothing could be done because he was the supreme king, and if anyone did not agree with his orders, he would be immediately punished and condemned in Iraq. The people were tired and afraid of Gilgamesh's reign, and they begged and begged the goddess of creation, in her downfall, to remedy the situation and take over Gilgamesh's reign. The goddess Ninhursag, the woman of the mountain, by the actions of mercy, would have listened and decided to help the unfortunate people of Iraq, her son. When subsidence created a mystical creature and wild by taking clay and giving him a humanoid form with the features of a beast, Ninhursag gave this mysterious creature the name Enkidu and also gave him great power so that he could face and, above all, defeat the great Gilgamesh and drop him on earth, telling him to fight so that Uruk would know peace that Enkidu had come to earth as a man. The wild man has a rustic and primitive appearance. He wore long, heavy animal skins to cover his body, and in front of the Iraqi people, he was a wild creature. The woman on the subsided mountain left her Enkidu in the forest, so that he alone can go to Gilgamesh's room. But unfortunately, he was wandering in the forest, surrounded by extraordinary nature. Savage must have forgotten his duty. Enkidu plunged into a terrible omission, still attached to the freedom of the forest. The days passed, and he could no longer remember it. What is the main purpose for which he came to earth? It ate and drank like other animals in the forest, roamed the desert, and was even considered one of the kingdoms of wild animals. Then 9 people, witnessing everything that was happening, were very worried about Enkidu because he behaved like a real beast and decided to take control of the uncontrollable event. However, she was not successful. Enkidu was disoriented and overwhelmed by a feeling of such wildness that he could not regain his senses and could not even follow his creator's orders. He knew that this was a big problem, and on top of the huge delay in helping the people of Iraq, who were under the yoke of Gilgamesh, one day a hunter was grazing his cattle. Very close to the forest was still leading his cattle to a forest source of drinking water. That day, standing in front of the child, surrounded by a herd of antelope drinking water, the hunter was so scared that he couldn't move for a few minutes. When he regained consciousness, he saw his face and realized it was not an ordinary animal but a man covered with fur like an animal. The hunter did not flinch but was stunned. Fear seized the poor man who was traveling with his herd, and when he regained consciousness, he returned home to his father and told him all that had happened. What he saw the hunter say to his father. My father was a man from the mountains, his weight was felt in the countryside, and he had the vitality of a knight of Anu. He constantly traveled around the country with his cattle. He always strutted around the neighborhood, and in places where there was water, he set his feet. I was so scared that I didn't dare go near him. He filled the ditch, I opened it, he broke the trap, and I set him so that the animals escaped from my hands, and he also prevented me from hunting on the plain. The father, on hearing such a story, told him that there is no creature with more vitality and much worse than Gilgamesh, because he was the only one sent by the gods to protect and rule Iraq, and he concluded by saying that he should go to Gilgamesh's throne and inform him of such a fascinating situation. The hunter went to the palace, and in front of King Gilgamesh, he told him about the beast he had seen in the forest, looking for answers. So the king told him to go find Shomat, a man whose women were taken as sacred prostitutes from the temples of Iraq, to transform him from a wild animal into a civilized human being. Gilgamesh tells the noble hunter that Shomat should seduce Enkidu, and then he should have sex for 6 days and 7 nights continuously so that through sex the inside will be enlightened and civilized. At that time, Ninhursag delivered the power of Kuzbu, or the seductive power of Shomat, to Enkidu to fulfill the request. Shomat, when Gilgamesh entrusted him through the hunter who seduced Enkidu with lust, and they only had intercourse for 6 days and 7 nights, after which the creature understood many things and remembered what the goddess had commanded at first. Enkidu was not entirely convinced by Gilgamesh's idea that the king had described this hideous creature as one that breathed the fire of death. However, the king was so determined that Enkidu finally accepted Gilgamesh's crazy idea. In the year, the king told his new friend that they would be so strong between them that they would be able to kill the forest beasts with ease, and not only that, but the forest would now be liberated so that humanity would be able to enter without fear. Quickly, the Uruk king ordered the production of the best weapons for the historic confrontation, and these weapons must be produced before the brave people who will fight against Tambaba. On the day 2 of Iraq's strongest men began their journey on the outskirts of the walled city, they kneeled and prayed. The god Shamash helped him in battle and, above all, brought him back alive to Iraq, and so they set out, knowing that the journey was a bit long as it would take them several days to reach the cedar forest. During the journey, Gilgamesh had terrible nightmares, and every night Enkidu was confused by Gilgamesh's many moans. This frightened Enkidu, but in the morning, Gilgamesh encouraged and persuaded him to continue on this giant journey. They continued for many long days until they saw in the distance giant cedar trees, which warned that their destination was in sight. So when Enkidu arrived, he had an expression of terror because he was afraid of the giant guardian. People live in the forest. On the other hand, Gilgamesh is completely convinced of victory because, with his great and powerful friends, they are once again indestructible. The king encourages Enkidu to pursue courage. Enkidu shows feelings of anger and follows Gilgamesh into the forest. Searching for the terrifying Hambaba did not take much time, and to their surprise, they stood before the terrible monster. Then a feeling of fear came over Gilgamesh, who at first had not a drop of fear. Enkidu looked at Gilgamesh's disheveled face and returned the favor. This time it was he who encouraged him and hit him with a cry, reminding him of his mission. Within seconds, they were back at the battle position duel, and the two rushed into battle against the fearsome giant. The battle was with Bloody, the beast of great power. For a moment, it seemed that he would win the battle, but the god Shamash witnessed the battle and decided to help Gilgamesh. So he sent out 13 resounding victories with just one finger. Gilgamesh and Antiquity took advantage of God's divine help, and with human cunning and agility, they succeeded in overthrowing. Hababa was already on the ground, and the giant begged for his life. However, Enkidu was determined to kill him, the monster Hambaba, with his last breath before dying with the curse. And was killed by Gilgamesh Enkidu, and Gilgamesh celebrated his victory with tears and laughter by defeating the giant Hambaba. They left the cedar forest from evil, now convinced that the power they possessed was of divine origin and that their power was so great that no creature on earth could defeat them. Because the gods always watch over humans. And in this case, they witnessed the fight of the Iraqi men against the giant Hambaba of the defenders. So Ishtar looked straight at Gilgamesh. Ishtar was so fascinated by Gilgamesh's appearance and strength that she immediately thought of proposing something to him, so that no one would refuse to approach Ishtar, the king of the Uruk, and offer to be his lover. Ishtar was a goddess of love and fertility, famous for having many lovers, and the love of this beautiful young goddess was considered very dangerous for Gilgamesh. The proposal was a simple mockery, as he would not accept such a proposal without any reason, so in strong words, he told the goddess that he doesn't accept being her lover and that he doesn't want to have any relationship with her. The goddess Ishtar felt very offended at being rejected by the immortals, then cursed Gilgamesh and retired to the room of her father, Anu, the god of heaven. Gilgamesh ignored the goddess's words and continued on his way. However, as for the goddess, the rejection caused her so much pain that when she arrived at her father's palace, she complained endlessly and begged once more to punish Gilgamesh for this great mistake. He sinned. Ishtar told his father to create a celestial bull, or the cow of heaven, so that Gilgamesh would feel what true fear is and thus be able to take revenge on the hero. He also told him that if he did not do what the goddess asked him, he would break the door of the underworld and dig up more dead than living. Anu was surprised at what his daughter said and was very doubtful of this plan, but before the threat of the goddess decided to do it, Anu told his daughter that he would do it. But she must understand that if he accepted, the land would go through 7 years of scarcity and drought, and at the end, he asked the goddess if she had gathered enough, providing for humans and animals during this time of scarcity and famine. Ishtar responded to her by saying that I had stored grain for humans and would have father's provisions for the animals. The earth had been barren for 7 years. So a new beast sent a terrible beast to earth. At first, this beast killed hundreds of people with just its breath and gradually spread fear in the city. In Iraq, the bull of heaven was so fearful in the city that many people begged the king to defeat the monsters and save Uruk from destruction and famine. Enkidu listened to the pleas of the men of the city. They depict the beast every day as a truly evil demon, and then Enkidu decides to confront the beast with Gilgamesh after encountering the beast. Antiquity rushed forward and grabbed her with his huge, sharp horns, as if trying to overpower her. For his part, Gilgamesh fought the animal below with all his might and his great swords, whereupon the bull foamed at the mouth and fell to the ground with a loud roar. Enkidu saw this fall, and the great celestial bull said to Gilgamesh's friend, "We have won." so they both tore out the terrible monster's heart, and in gratitude, they offered it to the god Shamash. In Iraq, the entire people were grateful for the great actions of the heroes and were congratulated for their great achievement of saving the entire country. On the other hand, Ishtar was extremely angry that her plan had failed, and not only that, she also felt insulted by the murder. The monster she commanded through her father, the goddess, came close to the wall of Iraq to see what was going on, and when Enkidu saw her, he quickly cut off the bull's parts and threw them into the goddess, who told her that if she dared to enter Iraq in the future, he will do the same thing to her as he did to the bull that night. Gilgamesh held a feast in his palace in the name of the victory achieved. Everyone attended the great event honoring two great heroes. That the city of Iraq had Enkidu in his house, while he was resting, he had a fascinating dream, and most of all, it made him very scared because of that dream. He saw the decision of his death in the morning. Enkidu told Gilgamesh to listen to the dream I had tonight. Anu Enlil and the sky god Shamash gathered at the council, and Anu told Ea that they killed the angels Bul and Humbaba, who lived on the Cedars Mountain. They must be executed, but little is reciprocated. Enkidu must die, and Gilgamesh must not die. Gilgamesh responded to him with words of encouragement, and lo and behold, he went to the temple of Shamash to pray for his great friend. Ishtar was very angry and returned to ask her father, Anu, to punish those who killed the divine beasts. A new god and the other gods decide what the punishment will be for insulting the divine power, because Enkidu and Gilgamesh killed the heavenly bull and the giant Humbaba, and such actions are not unforgivable amidst the wrath of the gods, so they decided to punish Enkidu with death. However, Shamash opposed this, but Anu's power was much greater than Shamash's, and they decided to kill Enkidu. Enkidu was very curious about the dream, so he did it. However, he continued to live a normal life at the Palace of Europe with his good friend Gilgamesh. Unfortunately, as the days passed, Enkidu became more and more sick, after which Enkidu blamed him and regretted his actions. To Europe, became civilized because of his destiny. Having been dead for a long time, Gilgamesh constantly went to the temple of Shamash to pray for Enkidu's health, but was unsuccessful because, with each passing moment, Enkidu became worse and worse, until one day, exhausted, he died.